Hey, what's going on, guys? It is Psycho here, and today I'm bringing you guys my first tutorial on how to make a game from scratch. So this is not going to be a speed level tutorial, and it's actually going to be like a game from scratch. So we're going to be developing a game. If you remember, like a week back, I think a week ago, I asked you guys what kind of tutorial you would like to see from me. And the one that got suggested the most is already made, by the way, but it was the post-processing effects that I have on my scenes. I already made that tutorial, like I said. It's going to be a link in the description below, so if you want to check it out first, you can go ahead and do so. But in this video, or in this series that I'm starting today, we're going to be checking out how to make a catch game that I created recently on LNC, which is a show that or not a show, a series of time-lapse videos where I kind of just code and like make a really simple system or a game and then just kind of show it to you guys. Basically, it's LNC, late night coding. I kind of stopped with it for a while, but I'm gonna come back to it later. So let me know if you have any suggestions on what I should create for it. But anyway, we're gonna be creating this catch game. If you want to check it out first, you can go ahead and do so. There will be a link in the description below for that too. But otherwise, we're gonna go right into it without spending any time. So, by the way, I'm not gonna be using any assets from the asset store, so I'm gonna be making this very simple. So we're gonna have a player out of a cube, and the keys that I use, or the objects that are going to fall down, which we as the player, which is a cube, is going to be picking up, are basically going to be like spheres, I think. So we're gonna be using different tags, but they are probably going to be their shape names. So in case we're using a cube for a player, or a sphere instead of a key, depending, like compared to my video, I'm most likely going to call it for a sphere instead of a key, so that you guys don't, get confused by that. But the player is obviously going to be tagged the player, so we're going to be getting into that as soon as possible. But first of all, we're going to be creating a few directories here so that we make it very clear for everybody watching this. The first one, I think we could call it for scripts. And the next one we can call it for materials. So they are just basically two different folders, one called for materials, one called for scripts. The scripts is the one that we're going to locate all our scripts inside, and materials is going to be where we locate our materials. And the player is, or maybe the spheres are most likely gonna have some different colors, so we're gonna create some materials for them, but they're just going to be colors, so we're not gonna need to go into Photoshop and like add the custom texture or anything. It's just going to be simple colors, but further out you can just develop it as much as you wish to, and I'm just here to kind of give you the starting point. So anyway, let's get started. So first of all, we're gonna be creating our ground, which is going to be a very simple cube. Oh, and also before we get started, I could actually make this, let's see, we can make the camera projection to orthographic instead of perspective, so that it actually becomes 2D, so it renders everything in 2D, and it's not like, we don't necessarily need a 3D system for this, but basically we're just going to align this so that it actually fits perfectly. Now that I remember, I think we could just yeah, there we go. Yep, that's a lot easier. So you just kind of click T on your keyboard, or else you could also choose it from here, top left corner. So you can see that we have a hand, which is Q on your keyboard, and then the last one is a rectangle with a circle inside or in the middle, and it's basically T on your keyboard. So it's pretty much the 2D UI shape changing toolkit, I think. But you can use it for 3D objects too, and it's very useful. I really like it. But so yeah, we have the cubes. We're gonna be renaming this cube to ground because it's obviously our ground, so we can just name it ground. And what do I need? I can actually I could make walls too, I think. Now the most important thing here, if you have orthographic on your camera as well, just like I did, you need to make sure that they are placed correctly. So if I move this in Z coordinate in the world, you can see that we we can't see any difference at all in the game window because it's 2D. So Z coordinate is never rendered in 2D. So you're never going to be seeing any difference, but there is going to be a difference, obviously, because the game is still in 3D. So if you have an object here, it's going to look like it's going to collide with the cube here, but it's going to fall in the middle of the two others. I'm just going to close Skype because apparently I just become very famous whenever I make a video. Alrighty, there we go. Sorry for that. But anyway, we're going to be calling this cube for wall left, because this is going to be the left side wall. So we're gonna move this here, and then like I said, I have to align it perfectly so that it actually doesn't interfere, or actually just so that it actually interferes, because we obviously wanted to block the passage for, or the path for our player. So we can actually just move this up a little bit. There we go. So now what I can do is just kind of duplicate this. So you're holding Control and click on D, and you have duplicated it now. So we're also going to change the name on this one, so we don't have wall left ones, but we actually have wall right, because obviously it's on the right side. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna place another cube here, and once again align it perfectly so that it actually sits perfectly with the or aligns perfectly with the ground and all the walls, etc. So we're gonna have it here, and then we're gonna move it upwards. Oops, there we go. Oh, too much. I think that's okay. Well, never mind. So we're gonna have it up here somewhere. I think we can have it here. So this is going to be one of the spawn points, and here's going to be another one, and then another one. We could just create this by code and just instantiate these by code, but you know, it would be easier as a task because the game would take care of that. But I assume that you guys are new to coding and all that, so I feel like we could just create it manually too, like it's not too difficult. So we're gonna duplicate these 5 and just kind of move them here. And also we're going to align all of them, so we can just select them from our hierarchy and move them here. So I think we can just play around with the movement a little bit more, or the positioning, I'm sorry. So I think we can have it a little bit more to the edge of the screen, so we can have it like that. It doesn't really have to be perfect, like it's barely going to be noticeable where the sphere spawn. Like it's obviously going to be noticeable where the sphere spawns, but in case it's a little bit too close to the next one or so, it's not going to be very visible. We're also going to make these invisible, so the cubes or the spawn points that I like to call them for aren't going to be visible in the game, which is always a nice feature. So we just play around with the movement a little bit more, so we have it like that, and we just kind of move it a bit to right. I think we can have it like this. It's not very important. If you have OCD, I think I have OCD because this really disturbs me, but you know, if you have OCD, I'm sorry, but it doesn't really matter how they look right now. So I don't really, you know, it's not very important. Like the important part isn't that. So what we're gonna do is we can actually create an empty game object and just call this for spawn points, and then mark all these cubes and rename them to spawn point, and then move them inside of the game object that we just created, which is called for spawn points. So whenever we move the spawn points object, they are all going to follow up, and it's very nice in the hierarchy now, because we skip having these like really messy hierarchy menus. But yeah, that is pretty much it for the level. I think we can just kind of move a little bit too if you want. You can, you know, you can play around with the positioning as much as you wish to. We're not gonna come back to this and refer to it, so you don't really have to worry about the positioning, but in case you want to make something serious and something very nice, well, you can do so, but it's not very important. So oh yeah, we're also going to have another cube, which is going to be called the player. We're going to be creating the player now. We're using way too many cubes, but I think I just can, like, we can have a different color for the player so that we can actually tell the difference between the ground and all that. But yeah, once again, you have to align perfectly. So here we go. cube, this is going to be a call for player. There we go. Now we have a box collider, it's going to be left there. Mesh render. Oh, also a important part here. Let's just tag this for player first. So you just go to tag and click on player. It's very simple. But the important part was box collider. We have to add one more. Now the difference here is this is going to be a little bit bigger, because this box collider that the cube object is following up with is basically the collision detector, or the collision itself with walls and all that, so that we can't actually like interfere with them and walk through them. So it's gonna be left like it is. But the second one is that we just added is going to be checked in is trigger, and we're gonna be making the size a little bit bigger. So I think 1.5 I think should be enough. We can't really see the difference here. There we go. So 1.5, oops. There we go. I think it's a little bit too big. So let's make it 1.2, 1.2, and then 1.2 in all the coordinates. Make sure that you don't play around with the center, because it's obviously already centered, so we don't really want to play around with that. This is a very nice collision detector now, so whenever the spheres or the keys or whatever are going to collide with the players, this part of the player, like the green area, like the green lines, it's automatically going to add a point to our players. So that's basically how we check if the player is collecting up the spheres. So we can have it a bit more here. There we go. I think that's okay. Yeah, pretty much done. Pretty much done. There you go, the game. Now, but what we're gonna do now is we're gonna unfold the spawn points and make them invisible. So we're just going to disable the mesh render. Also, we could just remove the box collider component from every single one of them. To mark them, if you don't know how to do it, you just hold shift and just kind of click the last one, so it marks every single one. You can do it with any other object. Like, these are basic Windows settings, I guess. I think they are available on Mac too, but it's obviously different keys. But basically, if you don't know these, you don't know Windows, pretty much. So we have the player now, we have all the walls, we have all the spawn points set. Now we're gonna get into the coding, which is the interesting part. Actually, before we get into coding, whatever. I thought of adding colors before we get into the coding, but it's not very important. We can do that later too. We're gonna go to scripts folder, in case you have created one. If you haven't, once again, I really suggest you to do so, but you know, it's up to you. So we're gonna create a C# script. We're gonna be coding in C#, and this is going to be a call for player. So what we're gonna do, first of all, we're gonna drag this onto our player game object in scene. Now we can just double click in the inspector, or we can just double click on the player inside of the project tab, but it's not very important where you double click. As long as you open up the script itself, it's okay. Mine is going to be opened up in Visual Studio because I use that as my main compiler. The compiler is basically the software where you code, so that is my main software right now. I was using Brackets for a while ago, but I kind of changed back to Visual Studio. It's a lot better. Brackets is more about PHP and HTML and just web development in general, so you know, if you're into that, it's a lot better. It was a lot better for me too when I was into that, but right now we're making a game, so I can just, you know, use Visual Studio. So it's laggy, I'm sorry for that, but we're back, I guess. Yes, there we go. Okay, so we're gonna delete these because we're gonna create, we're still gonna use them, but we're gonna create our own methods too. So assuming that you know basics of the C#, and you know, basics of classes and all that, we're still going to stick as easy as possible. But in case you have any questions about this or the game itself, or questions about Unity, you can always feel free to ask me or my community in the comment section below. So we're gonna have a public start void. So public void start, and then parentheses, obviously. This is going to check once as soon as the game starts. So now we're going to be creating the variables. We're going to be adding a few comments too. So these are going to be game variables, and then here we'll have player variables, and then here we'll have sphere variables. There we go. Alright, so it's a little bit better coordinated right now. So we're also going to create the public void update. Oops, there we go. Update is basically going to check the game every single frame. So whenever we type in something in update, it's going to be checking it every single frame. So that is very basic. That is very basic information about C#. Actually about Unity C#. So because these are obviously Unity specific methods or functions or whatever you want to call them for. So we have the public void start, we have the public void update. Now we can create the variables. So for the game variable, we're gonna be creating public. I think we could call it for like, I think if it's a public float timer, it's good. So we're also going to add some comments afterwards. So this is going to be the variable that we're gonna using, or that we're going to be using for to check whenever a new sphere can be spawned, basically. So we can call this for basically like how often can a sphere spawn. There we go. And we're also going to have public float movement speed inside of player. This is going to be, let me move this a little bit. So this is going to be the movement speed for the player, movement speed for the player. There we go. And we can also add like how fast the player moves. Steam, please. Okay, so we can also have we don't really have, you know what, we can delete the sphere variables part because we don't really need anything. Yeah, we could do that. It's very simple for us. So now we're also going to create a public game object inside of game variables, which is going to be the sphere. What is it called for? Sphere prefabs. There we go. So it's going to be public game object sphere. And we're also going to have another one, or actually we don't. Yeah, whatever. We can have another one too. You know what? We can just create a specific script for sphere. Whoa. Okay. That was my lamp that just fell, so it scared the shit out of me. But anyway, we're not gonna be using another variable for the sphere. We're just gonna create another script for the sphere instead. So it's gonna be a lot easier, and it's gonna be a lot more coordinated. So it's gonna be a lot easier for you to follow up, basically. We can add the comment saying the prefab for the sphere. There we go. I sometimes call them for spear, sometimes call them for sphere. The right one is sphere, but you know, it's a little bit difficult to pronounce that every single time. Oh, also we're going to have a this is going to be luck based. So oh yeah, hold on. Actually, now that I think about it, or maybe, yeah, whatever. We don't really have to do that. Anyway, we're gonna be coding further out and see how it goes. I think we could just check for in case sphere is not set right away. So check if sphere is set, if sphere debug.log warning sphere is not set in the inspector menu. There we go. So basically this is going to check in case sphere is set. So whenever you have a, again, assuming that you know basic C# skills, but basically whenever you have a quotation mark, or not quotation mark, what was it called for? Exclamation mark, there we go. Whenever you have an exclamation mark in before like a game object or a boolean or anything like that, except for float and integers, it basically means that if it's not. So how can I tell this easier? So this is going to be if sphere is not set. So basically the exclamation mark means that we're checking in case the sphere does not exist. If we had only without the exclamation mark, we would be checking if the sphere exists. But we want to see if the sphere does not exist so that we can throw out a debug log error message. And the debug log is going to say, warning, sphere is not set in the inspector menu. It's very simple, so you're going to be able to see that in the debug log, and you're going to be able to set the sphere right after that, obviously. But anyway, we're also going to be checking that out in, or actually we don't really need it because we already have it in start, so it's obviously going to follow up. But we can pretty much just get all the, oh yeah, we forgot creating the variables for the spawn point. So we can create public game object. Now this is going to be an array. So you just kind of add a rectangular opening bracket and then rectangular closing bracket right after game object. That means you're creating a new array. There we go. So we're going to be calling this for spawn point. I know it's going to be several spawn points, but basically when we're using like a for loop, it's going to be very simple for us to go in and check for every single spawn point. So the name is going to be a lot easier to focus on further out in the development. I'm going to show you guys what I mean in just, well, maybe not just a bit, because I may have to end this video here, but you know, as soon as we get into the for loop, I'm going to show you guys what I mean by that. So we can just comment the game objects for each spawn point, and we're also going to have public integer amount of spawn points. So this is going to be the amount of spawn points we have in our game or scene. There we go. Those are pretty much the variables that we need right now. If I realize that we missed out something, I can come back to it later and just kind of change it and let you guys know what I changed it. But so far so good. So we have a check if the sphere is existent or not. Now we're going to get all the, well, we don't really need to check if the spawn points exist or not, because they are obviously going to have to exist. But anyway, so we can just go ahead and make the spawning now. So we're actually going to have a different method for public void spawn. So this is going to be used for spawning. Note that this is not a Unity function, so we're creating our own custom function right now. I realized that we need another integer. It's going to be called public integer chosen spawn point. So this is going to be a random number that we're going to it's going to be a number that we're going to randomize. So the number that is going to be chosen is going to be the spawn point that is going to be spawning the sphere, basically. So we can just call it for chosen spawn point a random number that will be generated under spawn to choose what spawn point is going to be used. There we go. Now we're going to have to check with the timer. I think we could have a custom boolean just to see if the timer has hit 0 or not, or else we could just make it very simple and just kind of stick to classic and check if the timer is 0 or not. So anyway, we're basically going to say if timer is equals or lower or equal to 0. Wow, the ice cream car in Sweden. I don't know if you hear that, but if you do, that is our ice cream car. We could actually remove the brackets. We don't really need them. We're gonna call spawn. So now, first of all, we're gonna have to select the chosen spawn point. So chosen spawn point is equals to random range 0 to amount of spawn points. I think that should work. There we go. So basically what this is going to do is, first of all, we're checking in case the timer is lower or equal to 0, which means that as soon as the timer hits 0, we're going to call the spawn method. And the spawn method is, first of all, going to take care of selecting or generating the random number for change or chosen spawn point. So as soon as that is chosen, we're going to continue with instantiating the sphere. So we're going to be doing that right now. So instantiate sphere. Oh wait, we need to have a for loop here. So for int I equals to 0, I is lower than amount of spawn points, I plus plus. So basically, if you don't know how to create a for loop or what the hell this is, so we're creating a new integer inside of the for loop, which is called for I. The I integer is going to be set to 0 by default whenever this loop starts, and as long as I is lower than the amount of spawn points that we're going to be assigning inside of our inspector in just a bit, as long as I is lower than the amount of spawn points, I plus plus means that it's going to be I plus 1 every single time. So this is going to be basically be a loop, a for loop, as long as I is lower than amount of spawn points. So basically what we're gonna do here, we can use this for loop to check for every single spawn point, and we're gonna be using this for loop in order to spawn the sphere on the chosen spawn point too. Actually, now that I think about it, we don't actually need a for loop, but we could save it for later. I think I could make it a little bit more advanced, but I don't feel like we need it right now, so I can just kind of go ahead and delete that part. But yeah, I think we'll do it. I really want to keep on going simple with you guys, so that you know, this is obviously my first tutorial, so I want to go simple as possible, and on my next video we can make it a little bit more advanced and all that. But basically we're going to be very simple right now. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna call for spawn point in opening square bracket, I think it was called, and then we're gonna say chosen, or wait, hold on. We're gonna say instantiate, and then we're gonna say sphere dot transform comma what was it called for spawn point opening bracket chosen spawn point closing bracket, and then quaternion dot identity. If you don't know how the instantiating function works, I don't know why I'm getting an error here. Oh yeah, it's supposed to be dot position. So dot transform dot position. There we go. If you don't know how the instantiating function works, it may look a little bit intimidating, but it's not. It really is not. So if you don't know how it works out, I'll link it in the description below, so you can check out the documentation by Unity to see how it actually works, so that you can actually implement your own. You can implement the instantiating in your own custom methods too. So now what we have here is first of all, we generate a random number and we set it to chosen spawn point. Then we instantiate the sphere on the chosen spawn point position, and then we need to set back the timer to whatever the timer was at start. Now, an important thing that we can do, actually like a workaround, is kind of go back to public float timer and just kind of say private float timer, but we're gonna have a underscore timer. It's not very important what you name it. You can call it for anything you want, except including renaming the underscore. But what I usually do is, as soon as I have another version of a original variable, I just kind of add a underscore, which is something very usual in developing community. So you can use that, but you know, if you don't want to, you can call the underscore timer to anything you want. So we're gonna comment this, and this is going to be the timer, the default timer that will be set constantly to what your timer is at start. Now this may sound a little bit intimidating, but as soon as we get into public void start again, we're gonna come in here, set the underscore timer to timer. Now we're gonna say timer is equals to timer. So what this is going to do is basically, as soon as the game starts, we have a timer, we have a regular timer here, that's marked, and as soon as the game starts, we're gonna set the underscore timer to timer, but we're going to constantly keep underscore timer to whatever the normal timer will start at start. So say you have timer 2 seconds, right? So underscore timer is constantly going to be kept at 2, and we do this because we want to set back timer to underscore timer, basically 2, as soon as it hits 0. So inside of the spawn method, we're gonna go back and we're gonna say underscore timer is equals to timer. So this is going to mean that we're generating a random number and setting it to chosen spawn point variable, which is a integer that we created in the variable section. And we're also instantiating a sphere right on the spawn point position that was chosen depending on the random number that we created in the previous step. Quaternion identity is not very important to know. I don't even know that, so it's not very important. But then the important part is we're setting back underscore, or actually this is supposed to be timer is equals to underscore timer. So then after instantiating, we're setting timer back to whatever underscore timer is. Basically, let's say it was 2, then you're gonna set back timer to 2, and as soon as the timer is set as 2, we're going to have to decrease it, which we'll do in public void update. So we're gonna say if timer is higher than 0, timer minus minus. So this is basically going to, actually we can say minus minus times time dot delta time. So this is going to, oh, that didn't work. Hold on. Timer is equals to, or minus equals 1. There we go. Okay. So basically we're checking if timer is greater than 0, or basically higher than 0, we're going to decrease timer by saying minus equals 1 per second. So time.delta time basically means seconds. So in case you have a 2 here instead of 1, you're gonna say decrease timer by 2 each second. But obviously, because these are seconds, we kind of just want to make it 1 so that it decreases 1 by each second. So I think we can go ahead into game and check it out now, how it works out. So let the script load all the variables that we just created. And I think I'm going to have a timer on 2. And then we also need to create the prefab for the sphere. So we're just going to create a game object first of all. And once again, actually it's not very important to align it right now because this is going to be a variable. I'm gonna do it a little bit more advanced, so I'm gonna go back to my assets folder and then create another folder or a directory and call it for prefabs. This is only going to be holding the sphere prefab, but hey, why not do it, right? So now inside of the prefabs folder we have our sphere, which is very nice. Now we can go back to game and delete the sphere game object because we already have the prefab and we don't need the game object anymore. So what we're gonna do here, we're gonna go back to the player, we're gonna highlight the player, and we're gonna drag and drop in the sphere field is going to be filled with the sphere prefab basically. So now inside the spawn point, you can see that depending on the amount of spawn points we're gonna have, or we have, we're gonna have a different amount of the different size of amount of spawn points. But I think if we actually go back here and delete amount of spawn points, it would be a lot easier because we're literally not using amount of spawn points right now. So we can, or actually, yeah, take it back. Take back. Thank you. Take back what I said. I forgot that I was using it inside of generating the random number. But anyway, we're basically going to fill the same number then in both fields. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we have 12 spawn points and we're supposed to put a 11 here. Because, or actually, yeah, it's 12. There we go. I thought that it would ignore the latest one because it's using element 0, but there was a little bit of math issue with me. So anyway, inside of amount of spawn points, we're gonna do the same. So now it's a little bit annoying, so we're gonna have to drag and drop every single spawn point here. Every element is supposed to have a different spawn point basically. Oh, there we go. So there we go. Element 6, I hope that was 6. Element 6 was this one. There we go. It's a lot better to actually name them properly, but I'm too lazy for that. So I missed one. I don't know which one. I don't know which one I missed. But anyway, whatever. We're gonna keep it like that. So now we can fold this. And chosen spawn point is nothing that we're gonna play around with. Actually, we can go back to the script and make it private so that we don't have to see it every time. So we can see chosen spawn point, we can make it private. There we go. Just save and go back here, let it reload. There you go. Movement speed is going to be set to, I think we can have 5. Let's see how that works. Yeah, we didn't make any spawn point for the player, or the movement speed, movement for the player. But you can see that the spheres are actually spawning very nicely now. So we're gonna go back to the script, and we're gonna code the movement for the player. So it's gonna be very simple. We're going to, let me add comments first. If check if timer is higher than 0, then what was it called for? Wow, I forgot math in English, but anyway, minus it. Basically, check if timer is 0, then spawn a new sphere. There we go. And now we're gonna have player movement. There we go. We're gonna let the player control the player by clicking A and D, but we're basically going to let them hold down the buttons, so it's going to be a lot easier. So we can say if input.getKey, or get, yeah, it was getKey, key code.A, this.transform.translate, vector3.left, time.delta time, times movement speed. So this is going to let us check if input is being held and that key code is A. And then we're going to say, in case that is true, we want this transform, basically this game object, to translate, move to vector3 left. Vector3 is basically the 3 different vectors that we can have in the, or basically the 3 different coordinates that we have in every space and every world. So you're gonna say that vector3 the left is gonna make the object move to left. And we also have time.delta time, once again, like per second. And we're gonna multiply that by the movement speed that we have set. We're gonna do the same thing. We can just copy this and paste it right below, but we're gonna have, oh, I forgot an if there. So instead of keycode.a, we're gonna have keycode.d, basically because we wanted to hold down A to move left and then hold down D to move right. So we're gonna also say vector3.right instead of left. There we go. So we can save that. And oh, also another very important note, you saw that the spheres were not falling down, so what we had to do is go to the sphere prefab, add a rigid body, and yeah, that is pretty much it. You just had to add a rigid body. So now let's see how that works out. We're not going to be able to pick up the spheres right now. They're basically going to fall down and then collide with the player, as you can see. So the player movement works and all that works. It's really subtle, like, but anyway, you can see that the random spawning point is very nice. So I'm gonna have to stop this video here, but in the next video we're gonna be checking out how to pick up the spheres actually, and don't worry, the second part is coming really soon. So basically we're gonna check how you can pick up the spheres instead of them just being really subtle and really like static and not being able to pick them up. We're also going to implement a point system so that we have a point that is being added every time we pick up a sphere or collide with a sphere. And we're also going to have a time system so that we have a timer running up on the top right corner of the screen, like in my LNC video. Once again, if you want to check it out, there will be a link in the description below. So yeah, that is pretty much it. And then we're also going to be like game over as soon as timer hits 0 and all that. So it's going to be very fun. The more difficult, I wouldn't call it for difficult, but the more fun part starts next video. So if you liked this video and if you found it helpful, make sure to hit that like button down below. Make sure to subscribe because there will definitely be so many more videos coming on my channel. There will be tutorials, there will be speed level designs, there will be more LNC, hopefully. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. Once again, if you enjoyed it, hit like button down below, subscribe to stay up to tune for new videos coming soon, and I will see you guys in the next episode of whatever I make. See y'all guys, love you so much, bye bye.